The surroundings have changed a great deal since you were last with us for the coverage of the Hankook 24 Hours of Barcelona. Yet another edition of the Trofeo Fermi Velez for nearly 40 cars to be tackling this annual event over Saturday and Sunday, but this being Friday night, a chance for night practice for everybody that might have a lot of experience, i.e. having done every single 24-hour race, as one gentleman has done. We'll cover that during this session, or indeed there are many people here this weekend for the first time at Barcelona, and I think actually through the course of this night practice it will be a bit of a shock to them how lacking the light is in certain places, but also then how much your eyes have to adjust coming out of the final corner and back across the stripe, because there's a lot of artificial light being pumped from the pit lane and also from the grandstand down onto the main straight. Delighted that you can be with us here on the Radio Show Limited network of channels as we bring to you 90 minutes worth of night practice. Apologies for the slight delay. It's just been a case of one of those days within motorsport, really, where sometimes a race or a session might get slightly put behind because of an incident and then the ripple effect through the course of the day. So we're actually starting this session pretty much 25 minutes late. We are already underway though. You haven't missed much at all because the quicker times are yet to be coming in, but this is a chance to cycle through, in some teams' cases, as many as 5 drivers through their cars, bearing in mind that some will have already been assigned to the night stints. The pros often get the nighttime hours, but we are now officially, meteorologically speaking, if I can say that word, into autumn now, so we will get a fair chunk of kind of full darkness running. The sunset was beautiful here tonight, and we'll have similar, I'm sure, to enjoy on Saturday evening as well. It's a 1 o'clock start tomorrow and obviously through to a 1 o'clock finish on Sunday. My name's Johnny Palmer, joined again by Joe Bradley in the main commentary box. We've got one of the best seats in the house looking over the tower that is immediately opposite us, with the lightning conductor, the highest point of that. I remember a year particularly bad for really treacherous weather. Thankfully looking glorious right now throughout the course of the day, and I think the forecast tomorrow is very healthy as well. Andrew Marriott's been working really hard on the support races, as has John Hindhoff, in fairness, and if you were around for our live stream coverage of 3 support races that, fair to say, did not go to plan, what a cracking job JH did on those, accompanied by Andrew Marriott. But Diana Binks returns to the pit lane for the duration of this session, and you've already got some news for us, Di.
Yes, I am. As darkness has fallen since we've been waiting for this sort of delayed start, everyone coming out of the garages absolutely couldn't wait to get out on track. The air temperature is around 29 degrees, but the track temperature, the air temperature is 25, but the degrees itself is 29. It has cooled quite a lot, and I think we heard earlier everyone said, you know, tyres are going to be a crucial thing here with the heat and everything else, so they'll be looking to find out a lot of different information tonight, and as you said, cycle through the drivers on track. So I will be here in the pit lane bringing you the stories that I can find during this hour-and-a-half session, just to update you with what the teams and drivers are doing before and after they head out on track.
Thanks, Di. Yeah, and we'll get straight to you with any stories that you have. Hopefully, you know, there won't actually be that many incidents, because the whole point of night practice is that it's an opportunity to adjust to this situation that we're going to have for many hours. I'll look up sunset and sunrise because it's going to be a good chunk. Nothing like we get at Dubai and Daytona, and those two races jostle for the most amount of darkness of any 24-hour race through the course of the year. Le Mans, the great 24 hours of Le Mans, held deliberately as close to the longest day as possible, so that's as few nighttime hours as we get. But this is a kind of middle offering in September, Joe Bradley.
It is, Johnny, but it's still a very important session. And the reason it's an important session is because this racetrack, like any other racetrack, completely changes when there is no light. And I've got to say, if you're watching the live stream, those in-car cameras are really not giving this track and what the drivers can see from the lights and the floodlights around the track. It's a lot darker than what it appears on our cameras. And there's certain parts of the track towards the end of the lap which are absolutely pitch black. And from our vantage point, just opposite the pits, looking across to those final few turns and final few corners, it's absolutely pitch black, and you can see the traffic moving through. It's really important from the aspect of, if you've picked, say, a reference point for your turn-in and your braking points, etc., they might not be there this evening.
Yeah.
And when you go out and you think, oh, I braked at the change of tarmac there, or you know, the sign on the debris fence or something, and then you struggle to see those reference points in the dark. So add in the fact that each driver needs to cycle through their nighttime laps for that very reason. You also have to adjust your headlamps so that your headlamps on the car gives you and maximises what you need to see. Not necessarily what you should see, but what you need to see. And sometimes you can only see the very bare minimum. Lap time is beginning to come in, Johnny, and with the temperature in the ambient temperature cooling down to, well, it's gone a pretty chilly 24 by my account. That's going to give the engines a lot more breathable air, and it's perhaps we're going to see the engines performing at their best. They're going to run slightly cooler, of course, more cooling air going through the systems, and the tyres. I'm not suggesting we're going to see double and triple stints, maybe from these Hankook tyres, but the tyres, they're going to give a lot of data and a lot of information back to the teams and engineers as to just what sort of difference the tyre wear is in these dark hours and cooler hours, and that's going to be very significant with regards to perhaps how you project and what strategy you're going to think about with regards to how you're going to run the nighttime sessions. And it's also going to give you an idea of which drivers to put out there, because if you're running a driver, and no disrespect there, if you're running a driver over 50, you might want to consider the 25-year-old instead.
True.
You know,
if you've got a 25-year-old.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've got if all of your drivers are over 50, oh well, by the grace of God, go you.
Well, without wishing to pick them out, I mean, this point was raised to me before, and I hadn't even considered it, but CP Racing, you know, 4 drivers mightily experienced, but they are all north of that milestone age. So, again, it's about who's most experienced, who's most comfortable with the track and with the conditions as well. 11 hours, I reckon it's going to be. 7 plus 3 is 10, 10 and a half, 11. Yeah, 11 hours, 20 minutes of darkness, because tomorrow night's sunset is, being very pedantic, 9 minutes past 8 on the evening of Saturday, the 10th of September, and the morning of the 11th of September, Sunday, the sun will rise at 7:27 in this part of the world. So it's a good chunk of not full darkness, because obviously it takes a while through the gloaming, as many people call it, to become fully dark after the exact time of sunset. So you're talking the best part of 11 hours where the track is going to look like it currently does, with not much light, certainly around turns 3 and 4, and many of the cars actually carrying extra headlights than the usual sort of streetcar equivalent. Some of the Porsche Cup cars have this very neat light beam almost, well, a couple of extra lights are slotted in above the front splitter there. You shouldn't really have an issue at all with visibility out front. The difficulty at times is if you're a car being caught by someone who wants to lap you, and then the glare in the mirrors can be rather off-putting, particularly in those very, very dark areas. But it's something, again, that the pros just manage to zone out. And sometimes, you know, a visor on the helmet is helpful for that too. 91 Porsche in. This is the car on pole position after terrific work from 3 of the 4 of their drivers, because it was 5 drivers, I beg your pardon, yes, because Jürgen Hering joining that team this weekend. Hering more familiar with the 92 Herbert Motorsport Porsche, which isn't taking part this weekend. But they used Ralph Bone, Alfred Renauer, Robert Renauer in qualifying. It's a 3-pronged qualifying if you worked with us earlier on. That means Daniel Alleman hasn't done any competitive sessions yet. Free practice happened earlier on, but that's generally considered not to be a competitive session.
I think that's Alleman getting in there.
Yeah, but that would make sense, wouldn't it, as the AM, and Jürgen Hering is another AM. So they've got 2 AMs. They've got an AM Plus, who is Ralph Bone. They've got a semi-pro and a pro, being Alfred Renauer and Robert Renauer, respectively. I was having an interesting conversation about the rules and regulations concerning that first 12-minute segment and who was allowed to take part and who not. Mainly brought to the table by Thierry Vermeulen, being put in by his team, because he's very much a silver driver and therefore semi-pro. But I'm just looking at our sheets. Ralph Bone's listed as an AM Plus.
Yeah.
And again, it was an AM-only session if you have an AM.
Well, an AM Plus is still classed as an AM.
No, it's not. It's not, because I've cleared that up.
Oh, really? So
yeah.
that's a bit of...
So again, that's a little question.
That's a bone of contention.
A Ralph bone of contention.
A Ralph bone of contention.
I see what you've done there. Yeah, as far as I knew, the regulation is if a team has an AM, they must be in the car for that first session.
But an AM Plus is not, even though it begins with the letters AM, is not classified an app. It's got to be a pure AM.
Indeed. Anyway, I hope Ralph's not listening to us right now and he's listening to Team Radio.
No, looks like he is. Hello, Ralph.
That look to the camera there.
It was a great lap in that first stint.
Wasn't it just? Yeah. Wasn't it just?
I tell you what, all joking aside there, it is fabulous to see the Herbert team back on top.
Yeah.
And we'll start tomorrow on that pole position.
Yeah.
It was indeed Daniel Alleman that we saw getting into the 91, and he's on his outlap already. They are 3rd quickest so far in night practice. There's a name at the top of the timing screen, though. Mark Bassing in the Huber Racing Porsche. He's gone to the top of the timing screen, and he's the first driver into the 1-minute 50s. So people just picking up the pace, just easing themselves in. And another fabulous sight to see, as well as the 91 being at the top of the timing screens after qualifying, is the vision I've got right now. Michael Kroll in the number 11 Hofor Racing Mercedes. This is the car, this is the team that has carried the number 1 before in this series by dint of being champions of the 24H series, and they've been out of racing for a little while. I think the last time we saw them was 2019, and Michael, of course, races with his daughter Chantal, there's Chantal in the pits of that number 11. Chantal, former women's champion, and Chantal with her husband Alexander Prinz, who's down to drive the car. I remember the days when Alexander was part of the crew, part of the wheel-changing crew.
That's right, he was. Yeah.
He can certainly pedal that car as well as change its wheels, that's for sure.
But actually, when you look at Chantal's racing career, outside of the 24H series, the only year she wasn't active was in 2020. And there were reasons outside of her particular reasons, which was it was COVID, but I appreciate as well that that's where the family Kroll was growing at that point.
It wasn't, yeah, that's right, and it wasn't COVID that stalled their racing operation, if you like. It was Chantal going off and having a family.
Indeed.
Her and Alexander became married. Can you remember that it was very difficult for us to refer to her as Chantal Prinz, because forever she'd been Chantal Kroll, as ever with anyone who gets married. And they went off, and Chantal was off to have her first child. She's now, in the interim, got 2. And as I said earlier, they're here doing a 24-hour race to catch up on their sleep. 2 kids under 2 years old.
And yet, Chantal still took active part in the Nürburgring 24 hours in 2021 and in 2022 with Hofer Racing. Should also point out that there are 2 Hofer Racing cars. And as far as I can tell, Max Partel is going to be driving both of those, not at the same time, I hasten to add, but there will be quite a bit of logistics to think about there in terms of drive time, rest time for Max Partel, because regardless of which car you're in, you can't say, I've just done 2 hours in this one, I can just jump straight back into the other car for another 2 hours. You have to have, I think it's half the drive time you've just done as a rest period. So you've just done 2 hours, you have to take an hour off before getting into either one of those two cars that Max is down for. People out there will know, listeners, viewers, is anybody else driving two cars? I think it's only Max Partle this year at the Barcelona 24 Hours, but if you have spotted somebody else, we'll happily take those via Twitter at @RSL_studio. And whilst you think about that, let's head to Binksy. Who have you found this time?
You've just been talking about Hofor racing, and I'm with Alex Prinz, I've just checked with him, is it Alexander or Alex? And we've decided Alex is easier.
Yeah.
You've just been out for the start of that session here. What did you find?
It was quite interesting after we had our last race in 2019, exactly here on the racetrack. So it's also the first time back in the GT3 car for me. It was quite interesting, especially now in the first run in the night, to see all the lights, how to handle the traffic, especially now with the fast car, to see how the smaller cars, how they behave, how they react. So it was quite comfortable for me, so just an easy run. Just orientate myself back in the car with the traffic, the lights, so it was nice.
How important is it to sort of get a feel, get the balance for the car, come in, discuss it with the other drivers as you cycle through the program in the evening, and obviously look at the different setups that you have?
That's the big challenge now. We had some issues during the private test and pre-practice and also qualifying. So it was now a mega job from the team. They solved it so far, so we now see how it's going. And so we are all amateur drivers, so we just need to find how we can set up the car that it fits to every driver here, especially the amateur drivers. So we can't make it like this sharp, like pro drivers like Christian Frankenhout and Kenneth Heyer. They liked it a lot. Just for us as an amateur team right now completely that's too much, so we take it a little bit back and we just take our goal that we are really consistent during the whole race.
How much does it keep changing as the track evolves?
Excuse me?
How much does it keep changing as the track evolves, the balance of the car?
Quite a lot, especially here in these temperatures. It's really hard to figure out when you do like testing, you come in, you have not really like this long distance stints, how you can see how the car is improving in development. So we will see during the race, and then we just need a basic setup, what fits, and then we will just adjust with the easy stuff during the race. So yeah, the team is really experienced, so I'm not worried about.
Great stuff, thanks Alex.
Thank you very much.
Alex Prinz with a big smile for the camera as well. Fantastic to have Hofor Racing overalls back in the garage, and they're looking after, as mentioned, two cars. So Alex is in the, I just had the page in front of me, it's the number 11 car, and because all 5 drivers are running in AM, that's also running as an AM Advantage car, which means you get to take on slightly more fuel with each of your stops. The Hofor Racing by Bonk Motorsport BMW also kind of run out of the same awning, although with help from German squad Bonk Motorsport. Hofor are Swiss. The 332 TC entered BMW M2 CS racing car, which has Martin Kroll, so that's Michael's brother.
Yeah.
Martin is Chantel's uncle. That's right, isn't it?
Yes,
yeah.
that's correct.
Michael Meyer, Michael Bonk, and as I said, Max Partle on double duty.
You mentioned different refueling criteria, Johnny.
I did.
I've been doing some digging and I found out some really interesting information. You know how we describe the fueling area rigs as being exactly what you have at the supermarket? Well, they're not quite. They may look the same, but they're not quite. They're a bit cleverer than that. And the process is that each team and each team's refueler has a kind of a tag that when their car comes in, they present the tag to like a contactless pad, like you would use your credit card or your bank card. And the refueling station recognizes reads the tag, and it's the computer then controls fuel flow and how much fuel you get. It also knows whether or not you're under green or under code 60. Because under code 60, we'll repeat again, you're only allowed 50% of your allocation. But also, some cars, and it was described to me as, you squeeze the trigger, you get 10 seconds of fuel, it then stops for a few seconds, and then it restarts again for another 10 seconds. and it's kind of restricting the flow to take more time to fill your car. Now, what I haven't found is what cars get what sort of service. But I thought that was quite fascinating, because certainly I've been thinking that, you know, the mechanic, or the refueler, I should say, it was his job to regulate how much fuel went in to the car. I was totally unaware that the computer actually monitors the fuel flow and alters the fuel flow depending on what the criteria you're allowed on the car. Really, really clever equipment, and I think it adds many layers and many elements tactically to doing this race.
Yeah.
And you could have done this race a million times and then come back and run a different car, or with a different driver lineup, and that's going to give you a different refueling tactic altogether.
Well, one of the other key things is that at the point that tag is put into contact with the pump, that then sends a message to the computer system: are we under green or are we code 60 at that exact point? And then the pump decides whether you get 50% or 100%, which is the ruling.
And that's the technology that's allowed them to change the regulation about coming into the pits or being at the refuel station.
Let's get to Binksy. We'll talk more about fuel flow, fuel rate, but you can talk about more interesting things, Diana Binks, I'm sure.
Oh no, I think fuel rate is a very important thing that I need to discuss with Sam de Jong, who's standing here waiting to go out during this night practice session. The guys are talking very much about fuel rate. That's not what I'm going to talk to you about.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Obviously, Sam, you were here a couple of weeks ago, weren't you, doing the Porsche Carrera race? So pretty experienced on this circuit here in Barcelona. How would you describe it?
It's a bit of a mix. It's a roller coaster. It's a quick track with a very quick first sector, and then it gets more technical. So when you see on your lap time you're going quicker and quicker, and you see the green stuff, and then you know after sector 1 you can lose it all in sector 2 and 3, and then it becomes a lot more technical. For sure, the last couple of corners, not easy. So yeah, it's a very demanding track for a car and for a driver.
We've got 37 cars, I think, on the grid for this race. How important is it going to be to manage the traffic during the race, and certainly tonight as well, before we actually get the race underway?
I think tonight is a good way to get a look at the track. Is it bright? Is it not bright? Are there enough lights? How do you handle the traffic in the dark? I mean, the amount of cars, it's okay, but there's a difference in speed and also in, I think, experience of drivers. So I think in 24-hour racing, you always have to be alert and have your own strategy when it comes to overtaking and to do it in a successful way. So that's the key, I think, to get to the finish.
And obviously, as it's getting darker, picking out your braking points, how much do you have to really focus on that?
On the dark? I think in the dark you get into a flow a bit easier. I mean, the field of view is a bit narrower. And once you feel at ease in the car, I really enjoy it. And the times, most of the time, get quicker when it cools down a bit. So I think for most of the drivers, it's very enjoyable. But you have to go out there and throw yourself in the deep and not worry too much. Because if you go too much in like a defensive mode as a driver in the dark, it gets really tricky.
Now, we've come into the race team here quite a lot when they're competing. You've always made us feel very welcome. How would you describe this team you've got with you? Very welcoming. I think that's a good word. I mean, it's a family team. I've been with them since the beginning of the year, and I feel at ease. But they're also very professional at the same time. That's a bit the difficulty we have, this family environment. And they took me on board also to help a bit with that. So I'm trying to move up the ranks together. And at the moment, I think that's going quite well. Sam, go well this weekend. No doubt we'll chat to you during the race. Many thanks.
Sam de Jong chatting to Diana Binks. Getting more and more experience. He spent a fair chunk of last season in the European Le Mans Series at LMP3 level into Europol competition, and as Diana mentioned there, was here 2 weekends ago as part of the Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux Championships. Done the full season actually with Red Ant Racing, and his teammate within Red Ant Racing in the Benelux Championship, a certain Xavier Masson, who is mightily experienced, double champion in the the Benelux series and actually took a race win here at Barcelona 2 weeks ago. Did Masson as well, his first of the year. We've also right now got dramas out on track, potentially for one of the two Vortexes, because car 702 is slow, isn't it? Yeah. Nicholas Nobbs, the Swiss driver for the French outfit, is second in GTX in terms of times, behind the Leaderboard Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo, driven by Brendan Leach. And Leaderboard Motorsport 710 as high as 7th overall, therefore, within the GT category. But let's hope at least Nicholas Nobbs can get the car home at a slower pace than normal. And there'll be white flags here and there being displayed by the marshals. I've been trying to work out, Joe, whether any of the square LED lighting boards are in operation this weekend. This is a Grade 1 Grand Prix circuit, so we'll have them, I think. But it's a question of whether, I suppose, those boards can carry all of the necessary flag signals, because they might not have a code 60 programmed into them, for example.
Yeah, I haven't seen them, Johnny, certainly. No. I think that the acid test will be when we get a yellow flag, or we might notice something.
I think it's the old school touch of flags being used with torches being shone onto them.
That is very old school, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's that dark in certain places around this Barcelona circuit that is necessary. That's
a lovely segue, Johnny, because talking of old school, Mr. Marriott is behind us, who's itching to get a word in this night practice, so I'm going to jump out.
Okay.
And
that doesn't work when you turn that off.
Let Andrew tick and have a chat with you during this session.
Good stuff. Well, let's let you know. It's perfect timing, in fact, because we've had 30 minutes, therefore 1/3 of the session, and it is Hofor Racing that are fastest with their Porsche 911 GT3R. That's a Gen 2 991 spec car, the GT3 rather than a cup car, and Mark Basseng is in the pit lane, but his best time of 1:50.553 to put him top. The car's done 7 laps already. Second fastest, Pierre Caffer's just been put into the Phoenix Racing Audi R8, so rejoining the session. The car's best time of 1:51.090. Daniel Kylvitz, third fastest in car 22, the WTM Racing Ferrari 488, and we've just had an absolute best first sector from the German driver, so this could be a much better lap from that crew. Then it's Herbert Motorsport, the pole sitters for tomorrow's race, with their Porsche number 91, fourth quickest. Jürgen Hering, the AM driver, one of 2 AM drivers in the lineup, currently circulating there. And Christopher Nygaard for Poulsen Motorsport in the best of the BMW M4s is in 5th place. So as Joe has alluded to, Andrew Marriott's just taken his seat. Joe's dashed out. And this is very pleasant. It's a little later than we expected, but 9:20. Isn't it great to hear the sound of racing cars at Barcelona, Andrew?
Absolutely, on this fabulous track here. Of course, a Grand Prix circuit that's been used, I think it's 30 years now since they opened it. And I've seen all sorts of stuff here, from truck racing to bikes, and of course, several Formula 1 races. But interestingly, I was just monitoring the times of Mark Basseng, and he's been a Porsche sort of favoured driver. I'm not sure he's ever been a full factory driver, but he's been a Porsche favoured driver for the best part of 20 years. And he's still very quick. And he was consistently the fastest man out there in this last 15 or 20 minutes. The other Porsche drivers really impressing me, of course, is that young Dutchman Vermeulen. And his father, I believe, is Max Verstappen's manager. And Jos Verstappen is also involved in young Vermeulen, Thierry Vermeulen's career, and they're monitoring it very closely, and the kid is super quick.
Yeah.
He is absolutely super quick, and that has been showing up by far the quickest of the Cup cars, the Porsche Cup cars in this race. I think he's come in now, actually. But then, I still think that Ferrari is going to be right up there at the front throughout the race. I mean, what let them down in qualifying, of course, was the owner, George Weiss, who was quite a lot slower, so that brought the average down.
Yeah.
If they put his son in the car, and I think he's an Ambler son, they might have stolen pole position from the fabulous Herbert Porsche. And so Jürgen Haring's in the car now. He's the sponsor. He's one of the serious sponsors and he's a manufacturer of automotive parts, and he's a long-time sponsor of the Herbert team. Of course, Bavarians, you know, a bit like the Welsh, they're not really German, they're Bavarian.
Okay, yes, it falls into the category that's slightly outside. I appreciate that. We're in Catalonia, after all.
Well, it's a bit like that, yes. Chantal Prinz is out there at the moment, and as you said, Johnny, she's had some good runs at the Nürburgring 24 hours since I think she had the children.
Yeah,
I noticed
in the last 2 years.
Breakfast this morning, the grandparents are here.
Excellent.
And they were looking after the kids at breakfast, and they were very well behaved. So congratulations to the grandparents.
Too right.
And another big name that's just out on the track. Now, I don't know that we've mentioned Vincent Rademacher from Belgium. He's in his 50s now. Terrific career in Formula 3000. I think he might have even been the British Formula 4 champion at some stage about 30 years ago.
Well, it's only a handful of years ago. I saw him at the Formula 4 Festival, in fact. I think 2019, maybe?
Yeah,
and still had a couple of those cars.
But I think...
but no, back in the day,
he was, you know, on the fringes of Formula 1, never quite made it. And that's the nice thing about this series, isn't it? We have these maybe older drivers coming back, and they can still practice their art, and a lot of them are still jolly quick. Yep. Here is this German car, as you alluded to earlier in the day. It's run by Rinaldi. I think you spotted it on the back. It says
indeed.
But it's definitely the Rinaldi team. I believe that George Weiss, you know, if you look on the car carefully, you can't see it from that angle. And I think it's that is George Weiss taking a picture of it. You see bits of a newspaper. I believe he's a bit of a German newspaper magnate. I think he owns that paper from that town.
From Monschau.
From Monschau, yes.
Yes, well...
So there he goes. And what else have we seen that's interesting? Well, obviously we've had this late driver in the ST Racing BMW.
Yes.
Who was not meant to be racing here. So he is actually Samantha Tan's boyfriend. He brought his kit just in case. And at the last one, I don't know what was said between the pair of them, but suddenly he gets to drive the car. Now, he's been around in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo category for about 3 years, and I think if you Google him, and I can remember his name because it's very difficult to pronounce, I think you'll find he's moved on and might be racing an Audi R8 these days.
Okay.
And
we'll look out for, again, his name is on my lips. What I haven't got.
No, he's Stephen
Agakani.
And I think he's also been racing the Italian
Stephen
GT.
with a PH?
I believe it's a V.
Okay.
And Johnny is just using one of the best site there is to find this.
I'm going to have to check the spelling.
And I think I just hearing from Di. So
yes,
let's go straight down to Di.
Yes, you were just talking about WTM racing, and Daniel's just jumped out of that 22 car. You brought it in, you were sort of quick with the times, but I'm guessing that's not your objective tonight.
Sorry, again, can you repeat, please?
You brought that in, it was running, you know, ahead of the times, but that's not the objective for you tonight during this night session.
No, it's just getting the required laps for everybody, for us, and just checking the lights, checking if the car is okay, and that's our main goal for tonight, so that we are well prepared for the race tomorrow.
What did you find?
What we find? Nothing special. Everything was perfect, so we're just getting the laps everybody driver has to do in the night session now. And so we are in plan now, so we have nothing to check anymore. Light was okay, so let's bring the race here.
I mean, a long way to go. Obviously, we've got another, 45 minutes on this night session. What are your main objectives? What are you looking to find tonight, just to double check that everything as you want it?
Exactly. The main goal is normally to check the lights, check if the lights in the car are working well, because we have to dim them, and that we are not getting flashed by the lights in the car. But now in the first laps we checked it. Indy and Leo did all the check of the lights, and I was just taking my 2 laps now. And now we just Nico will do the 2 laps. Then afterwards Georg. And afterwards we will park the car, I think, for the last half an hour of the session, because we don't have to run too much now, and save the car for the race. Yeah.
I mean, obviously we've had qualifying, so that pressure's away, isn't it? I know it's a 24-hour race, an awful long race, but just important to be comfortable this evening.
Yeah, sure. It's also a good option now in the night to see how the car handles with less temperature. So we work on that a little bit, but yeah, qualifying is done, and yeah, we are quite happy with qualifying with P2. So I think we should be able to, if we have no issues, I think our goal is to win the race in the end, and now we are just making sure that everything is working now.
Daniel, thank you. Go well. Obviously, we'll talk to you during the race.
Yeah, Daniel's got pretty good history in Germany. You know, back in 2013, he won the German GT Masters Series, which is a big, important series, and it's also been second in that series a couple of times and third a couple of times. So he's one of the main guys in that German GT Masters Series. But we don't hear much of him. We never see him at Le Mans or anything. Also, just a little thing that I did notice with the Rinaldi twins. You know they're identical twins.
I did. I still can't tell the difference.
You
having
can
covered this
now.
champion. Go on.
Alfred's now got a full beard.
Okay, that's easy.
And
has he done that to be a favour to everyone else?
I don't know. But, you know, as I said, you know, it's a difficult weekend for them. It was 10 years ago yesterday that their father was killed in a road accident in Italy. And those two boys picked that business up and kept it running. And, you know, they've had a lot of success, also in German GT Masters and in Porsche, particularly Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland, you know, under the father's stewardship. And they've been able to continue it. I think it's a great story. And it also is a bit strange because the twins have taken the mother's name.
Yeah, Rinaldi.
But
Herbert lives
Herbert is actually, you know, their real surname.
Indeed.
Why they did that, I don't know. Maybe it's a German thing. So we got the Argentine guy that you've been going on about.
Oh, yes, Nicholas Ferrari.
Now, he's just put the fastest lap in of this whole session with a 150.312. And, well, nice to have an Argentine going well. And just go back a little bit for people just joining us now about Nicholas, is it Varone?
Varone, I say,
Varone,
yes.
yeah.
I've never actually asked him the correct pronunciation, but I think that's what they would say in Argentina.
What's his trajectory? I mean, he's from Argentina.
He is.
Just use the famous website. And,
he's from
Buenos Aires, yeah.
He's from Buenos Aires. He's 21. He races with Rinaldi in the European Le Mans Series this season.
Okay.
But that's
in an LMP2 car?
In an LMGTE car.
Oh,
yes.
LMGTE car, okay.
Yes, so Rinaldi have had as many as two Ferrari 488s. Remember, they run without the ABS and the traction control that GT3 cars do have some of, but he's so quick as a silver-rated driver.
We should know him because he's raced a season in Britain, is that correct? He had a season in Argentina in Formula Renault about 3 years, and then he came in 2019 to the UK just before COVID, I suppose, and raced with Hill Speed. And
stayed the following year.
And had one win as well.
That's right.
And obviously he was cutting his teeth and learning. And as you say, in 2020 he was in the same championship. And
but the connection with Rinaldi was kind of made in 2020 when he entered the Le Mans Cup in LMP3 cars. So he's got prototype experience, and he's also done some GT World Challenge events with Rinaldi at silver graded level. And now doing the full season in ELMS again with the German outfit. And I say German because Rinaldi always to me sounds very Italian, but they've been German from year dot.
That's right, they are, yes.
Yeah. The other point I will make is Leo Weiss. Yes, we've never seen him in the main race at Le Mans, but he has done the road to Le Mans races in prototype.
Yeah.
So those two races that are held during race week at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And again, you know, clearly the dream is to get into that big race if Leo Weiss can do it, as it is for so many.
No, I just noticed that we haven't seen him much in the ST racing, but ostensibly their lead driver, Nick Whitmer, and of course his brother Kumo, also a very well-known racer in the States. But Nick has just got in the car now, and he's just gone purple in Sector 1. So he's on a pretty quick lap, I think. And is he the fastest man out there? He's just Whitmer's just now done a 149.595, Johnny.
Yeah, so a 49.5, that's nowhere close yet to the 47.9 that we saw in qualifying from Nicholas Ferrari, as we, with just over 45 minutes of the session to go, therefore half of it, can get another update from Diana Binks in the pits.
We're down here in the pit lane. The 951 has just come in. Guillermo has just jumped out of the car. Looks like there's a bit of an issue there. I can see the other driver behind the wheel not able to move the steering wheel. Do you know what's delayed it and pushed the car back into the garage?
Yeah, it was sometimes when you get inside the pit lane with the brake so hot and you press in the driver change the brake. It can be some marbles inside the disc and it can be some fire, but not an important issue. We are just checking because we have a 24 hours ahead tomorrow, so we don't want to risk anything. So it's just precaution, you know.
Yeah, I can see the team there behind us in the garage just checking everything out now. But how was it on the track for you tonight? What did you find?
Yeah, I think it was really good. I mean, the grip inside the track, especially now, I was expecting less grip because during the dry it was not pretty good. But I exit now the pit lane and I felt really good in the first braking. So I'm surprised and good surprised. You know, I'm expecting a good night tomorrow.
I mean, it has cooled quite a lot tonight. It's cooled quite a lot tonight.
Yeah, it's better because during the day we are suffering quite a lot with the temperature inside there. And now I was feeling a lot better, a lot better, more relaxed, so you can focus more also. So, really good.
You mentioned the temperature inside the car. What does it get up to? Give us an idea.
Probably, I think, more than 45, 50 degrees. So, with the suit, helmet and underwear, it's pretty uncomfortable. So, yeah. So
you'll have to keep very hydrated.
Very hydrated and very concentrated. It's not easy to go to more than 200 with this temperature, yeah.
Are you enjoying it so far? Yeah. Are you enjoying the weekend so far?
Yeah, a lot. And the best is coming, so yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, he hails from the Costa Brava. He's actually north of Barcelona in Spain, up towards Figueres and Girona. But I would imagine being only about an hour's drive away from here, he'll know this place very, very well indeed. It's interesting to get someone of his track knowledge to say, actually, it's better than I thought, and I hope for a really good overnight stint tomorrow.
And I thought a nice little interview as well. He was very eloquent, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Not his native tongue.
Indeed.
Driving, of course, for a well-known Spanish team. Here's the 951 there. It is his car.
So, yeah, Porsche's... I'm not sure he's done much racing in those. He's done Super Trofeo Lamborghinis.
Yeah.
And prior to that, single-seaters. So they always say a Porsche can sometimes be the most difficult GT3 car to get your head around because the engine's hanging out over the rear axle and the balance, therefore, very different from a mid-engined Ferrari or indeed Lamborghini that Guillermo is used to. Down towards the right-hander will go a quick car this weekend, the Hofor Racing Porsche, with now Alexander Schwarzer at the wheel of car 23, third fastest, 150.5.
Now, he's a man not on my radar at all, Johnny, Alexander Schwarzer. Hofor, one of those very proficient German teams.
I wonder whether there's anything I can tell you about. Let's have a look.
Well.
No, very little at all, as in... In terms of racing at this level, I don't believe he's done anything prior to this. Certainly never been in the 24-hour series before. So
maybe he's somebody that when he gets out of the car should go and interrogate, I think is the word.
Well, he's driving with Mark Bassing and Manuel Lauch, who are going to be offering him so much advice and experience.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know if he's a young guy, we don't know anything about him. And just to give you a bit of an insight, that we use various websites to check the details of drivers and Google them and so on, because there's a lot of research to do in a race like this. Johnny uses, and I use one called Forex, and it is incredibly detailed and way above the rest of them, I think, Johnny. And Johnny's just actually tapped the guy's name in and it's come up with a blank. And that is very, very rare at this level.
It is, yes. So it's fascinating, therefore, to me to find out a little bit more about Alexander Schwarzer. I can tell you that he was born in February 1989. So he's only just north of 30. Yeah. But other than that, very little that we know about.
Well,
and also,
I might try him on another site, John.
Jörg Dreiso is down on my list as a co-driver to him as well. And Jörg, again, I know he's from Starnberg in Germany, but know very little about any racing that he's done, either for Hofor or anyone else. So the two AMs, Wolfgang Triller I have heard of many times. Triller's done LMP3 racing, for example. But the two AMs in car 23, are a bit of a mystery, but we shall get to the bottom of what's brought them to the Barcelona 24 hours. It's a fantastic race, is the bottom line, and great that they would want to be involved and get a relationship going with Hofor Racing. As I say, Schwarzer is in a quick car.
He has done basically a club racing Porsche Championship 2019 through the Porsche Racing Experience. He did 10 races and he finished 6th in that championship. Well, that's a club racing championship.
Yeah.
And that's about what we know.
Okay.
So
over to die, whether in this session or something for you to focus on, perhaps, Andrew, in the race as well. Car 23, Hofor Racing. There's some two very swift guys, the two semi-pros, and some others that we know less about, as mentioned. Nick Whitmer's in the fueling area for ST Racing, now topping the session, and funnily enough, he did the absolute best middle sector on his in-lap, it would appear, a 42.4, so could have gone even quicker, although his first sector time wasn't green, so that doesn't tell me that it was quicker than that car has managed so far. Georg Weiss now at the wheel of the WTM Racing Ferrari 488, car number 22. Their qualifying drivers did involve Georg, didn't they, in the WTM Ferrari. Georg did the first bit, then handed over to Varoni, and Kalvitz did the closing sector. So we haven't yet seen much of Indy Dontje.
He's hardly been in the car, has he?
We've got an incident down on track, treble 4. And emotions running very high indeed. Apologies, that's probably been on the screen for a little while now. I was busy beaving away at times, but a Porsche and a BMW have come to blows on the track.
Samuel Vertrack in the 444. I think that's a Czech car, isn't it?
Yes. And that's the 91 Porsche. It said Renauer across the back of it. I'm sure that is 91. It is. Car 91, the pole sitter, has been involved with the treble 4 BMW, and there was a double hit there. First of all, to spin the Porsche, and then as it came to a halt in the gravel, the BMW couldn't stop in time, and that Ravenol back Beamer.
I wonder if we can see that again, or see it from an in-car.
So it's the Schenkier Motorsport BMW, which I think is the one you just talked about. Second in GT4, and the Porsche, and it looked like the Porsche was trying to get by the BMW. The contact was made, and driver of 91 not at all happy, clambering out. It is Alfred Renauer, who now wants a word with treble 4 and its driver Samuel Vertrack. So clearly Alfred Renauer knows exactly who was at fault there. It's not our position.
Sam's adoring the guy. The guy hasn't got out, has he? He's staying in there.
I get the feeling Alfred's not going to help him out either.
No.
As now the recovery crews are arriving on scene. So Alfred clearly knows that some damage has been done to this car, because, as I said, it was a double hit. It's ended up in the gravel, and the BMW, my fear is the BMW then hit the Porsche right over the rear wheel arch, which is the drive end of the car. So they've got a quick race car that all of a sudden now may need some tender love and care overnight. And this is exactly the opposite of what you would want to happen during night practice, particularly having taken pole earlier on in the day. And Alfred doesn't really know what to do right now. He tends to be the quieter of the two brothers.
He does,
Not right now, though. And reasons for that are understandable.
The main driver in that 444 is a guy called Richard Gonda, who's actually Slovakian, and has raced quite a lot in the European Formula 3 Open Championship and done Renault Sport. And he has been coaching this guy that we've just seen make this mistake here, Vertrack. And that's about all I know about Vertrack. He's coached by Gonda, and the car is still there and still sort of in contact with each other, really. And now the 444 has been pulled backwards on the tow rope, come out of the kitted litter. And
Samuel back on Vertrack.
He's staying in it. Wisely.
Yeah, well, I think if I was him as well, and Alfred Renauer was coming round to have a word.
Doesn't look desperately bad, does it? But, you know, if you take the problem is you take a hit on a back wheel like
That's
that,
the worry.
and it jars all the transmission and so on, and they're going to have a big job on that. They're going to pull that out. Obviously, it's it's well in the glow. I wonder if we get a chance to there. We're down at the Herbert Motorsport garage. And we've always said over the years, Dony, how understated that team is. And they don't have flashy garages. It's all about engineering there. But I noticed that they do now have some sort of fairly elaborate garage furniture, which they certainly didn't have a couple of years ago.
The other concern, as far as Alfa Romeo is concerned, is night laps to make sure that each of your drivers are qualified. But I mean, they are all very well experienced.
Johnny,
so
they put that in the rules, but they very rarely don't let people run.
Force majeure often steps in.
Force majeure, yes.
Particularly when you're dealing with Ralph Bone, Daniel Alleman, the two Renaults. The only questionable one will be Jürgen Hering. I actually think Hering's done his night laps because he was in the car prior to Renault. So. Yeah, the next concern is, and the 4x4 is now it's actually digging into the gravel because maybe the Porsche just will not roll forwards or backwards. So is there now a concern about drivetrain having completely stuck, depending on how hard that hit was? I can't see a ding in the wheel arch of the car, actually.
It doesn't want to go. It must be in gear, hasn't it? No,
those rear wheels are just not rotating currently, so the marshals hopefully will call that off. Meanwhile, the Schenkier Motorsport BMW is being towed away. And Samuel Vetrak's still
Well, there we got an onboard
that.
camera. The car being towed back to the pits with the 60 flashing.
Now, I don't know whether Fabian and the rest at 0221 have some way of replaying the onboard of Samuel Vetrak as this incident happened. Unfortunately, that's not going to be possible, but it'd be great to see the exterior view of exactly what happened again, just so we can describe what was caught by some of our cameras. We're under code 60. I'm not sure I mentioned that, but code 60, we haven't had many of those today. It's a little bit like a full course yellow in that everybody now circulates at no more than 60 kilometers per hour. There's actually a button for most of the cars on the steering wheel that you click, and that prevents you from going higher. But it provides a safe environment, and particularly crucial in the race because it means the gaps don't change. If you've got a 30-second lead going into it, you should have one coming out of it as well.
It works really well, Johnny.
It does.
So, Dony, as you know, that I've got a book which has just come out, and one of the chapters is about the first time I ever came to a Creventic race, which is in Paul Ricard, and that race started in the pouring rain, and I saw a race started by a purple flag with a number 60 on it, and it was one of a number of firsts at that particular race meeting. I've written this chapter in the book. Is there much more of this available from performancepublishing.co.uk? Get a plug in for my book.
Very nicely done. That was so seamless. I didn't even notice it.
And it might not be the last of this weekend either.
I'm sure.
But I came to Creventic, knew a little bit about the series, not a great deal, and all these firsts happened. I mean, the other firsts that happened when we left the circuit for the night, we met a hog on the road coming the other way. Now, strangely enough, last night, driving to the circuit, the main road, which this circuit is off the main road to Girona, and it's basically what we call in UK a motorway. But we weren't allowed on the motorway because they were doing something, so we were down this sort of side road that's ran along the motorway, and then we stop, and there's not one hog like the one I saw in Ricard, but there's a family of 5 of them, and I think you got a bit. I was trying to expect to see that in the middle of Barcelona. Well, not quite the middle of Barcelona. It was still in the conurbation, wasn't it?
It was the middle of. It was the central reservation, and there were so many cars around. And like you say, this family of 5 hogs just happily munching away at some of the vegetation.
It was hog heaven.
It really was, and they were loving it.
One of the other things that amused me when I came to my very first Creventic race is I said, I need a pass, and they said, we have a pass for you, and they handed me a pass, and I hadn't sent them anything.
Okay.
But it had my photo in, which they must have lifted off my website, which was the photo that I always send people for a pass. I thought, I think I like this series.
Yeah, forward thinking always. And they make everything so easy for you. You don't have to go to great lengths to get access to the meeting. They want you to be here.
Yeah.
And they'll do the hard yards to ensure that you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know a lot of fans that have been treated so well by the championship as well. Number one fans, you know, that are really excited to be invited to the events.
Is that the longest tow rope you've ever seen?
Just about, yeah. That must be 8 car lengths, something like that. And thankfully now the rear wheels are turning. All 4 wheels are turning on the 91 Porsche.
They've got to pull it through this gap in the concrete barrier there. Well, I'm not seeing much damage, are you? But you know, we have got an absolute. That's the other thing that was great. The first Creventic race I ever worked there was a brilliant cameraman in the pits called Seb.
Yes,
he's still brilliant and he's tall. And I tell you what, when that car comes back to the garage, he'll be in there with his camera in all the right places. Because the thing about Seb is he understands what to look for. I work with a lot of cameramen and sometimes a lot of sports cameramen. Sometimes they're motor racing cameramen. Often they don't know which side to look or where to look.
Yeah.
But Seb always does.
I think Alfred's concern is actually the side of the car that we cannot see.
I think you're absolutely right. The door shuts, and that's a good sign.
Yeah, and he's just making sure that the B pillar is still straight, but there's clearly some damage to maybe the skirt, and actually on the right-hand side there's a bit of trim trailing loose as well.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not desperate, is it? But as I
would
said,
hope not.
it would have probably, you know, put all the shock forces through that transmission. So I hope to get running again. How much longer have we got on this, Johnny? Half an hour?
31 minutes, yeah. So we are back to green now. The BMW did not make it back to the pits. So Samuel Vitrek still shown out on track. Clearly they've towed that somewhere else. And the Porsche, sadly for those guys, is now just going to be kept behind the wall, really, because that's a safe location for it. If Alfred now can get it going again, then fair enough, but I don't think he's even going to try because there's a concern they're going to do more damage to the car, I think, in an attempt to bring it back to the pit lane. So it'll be left there for the next half an hour, and then and only then will Herbert be able to fully assess what's gone on. Alexander Schwarzer for Hubert Racing, but a chance to see exactly what, again, and for me to describe to you what happened. So BMW and Porsche, it's difficult to say because the contact had kind of already happened when our camera position found it. There was a reasonable touch, but it was just a kiss.
He tagged him first, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think the damage has been done on the left-hand side of the Porsche, in fact, the 91 Porsche. Right side, there's a bit of trim just above that right-hand skirt that has been ripped loose, but that can be fixed. But clearly Alfred's concern is the other side of the car. And obviously, you know, they've spent quite a lot of time through free practice, summer qualifying, identifying the perfect setup. And now some of that work will have to be done again. But they've got plenty of time, because, I mean, we don't start the race tomorrow until 1 o'clock. So it might be a late night, but Herbert will have had plenty of those in the bank in previous times. Drama, though, hey? When we thought, you know, Herbert were in the box seat here, all of a sudden you go out for your next session and disaster can strike.
Everything going wrong, but that's motor racing.
Yeah, that's why we love it.
One team we haven't given much of a shout out to is the Dynamic Motorsport of Italy. That's a pretty smart, well-run organisation, and they've got Roberto Pampanini out in the car now, and everybody just getting back up to speed. And Pampanini's been around a little while.
Well, yeah, I mean, that team, I seem to remember Pampanini doing quite a lot in Lamborghinis as well, but that was in his years with the Grasser Racing team. And then, well, he's been through a few different outfits within the GT World Challenge events, and first season properly with Dynamic Motorsport was 2020, who mainly run Porsches, do these days anyway. Dominic Ang of Malaysia driving the Viper Nizza Racing touring car, and that's just heading through now. That's car 165, which
that's the one with the bright green, so nothing to do with Dodge Viper.
No.
I mean, this championship is so international. Is that's a Malaysian car, isn't it?
Yes.
I think. And we've got Malaysians, we've got a Thai team, we've got two very good Thai cars. We've got an all-Lithuanian team. We've got a Luxembourg team. We've got drivers from China, the States, Canada. I think I counted 30 different nations amongst the drivers. And, absolutely fantastic. Just noticing the HRT Performance team here with their Porsches. Our old mate J.M. Littman I think he's out at the moment. And in the other HRT Performance car is a lovely Finnish name, Kari-Pekka Laaksonen, or Laaksonen, something like that.
Yeah.
But they are not the HRT that Haupt racing team. This is a different, two German HRT racing teams, just to confuse everybody.
Yeah, the Porsche specialists are HRT Performance, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then you've got, as you say, Haupt, or Hubert Haupt Racing Team, who...
which is sort of the official Mercedes squad, isn't it, these days?
But they're one of the teams to go to when you're wanting to run an AMG.
Well, they took over
competitively.
from Black Falcon, didn't it? It's a lot of the same personnel.
Yeah, but it was interesting to see Black Falcon actually popping up in some LMP3 racing in recent years, and with no connection to HRT. And but yes, you're right. Black Falcon do seem to have disappeared from GT3 level racing and almost replaced by HRT. And yeah, there's a crossover in terms of staff members there. Meanwhile, Jörg Drysov is now at the wheel of the Huber Racing crew again. Very inexperienced racing driver, but learning, plying his trade, coming from, as far as I know, club level motorsport, heading down towards the reprofiled turn 10 of the circuit. Now, that's less of an overtaking opportunity than it historically was. It's much harder stop into there, and you could, dive up the inside and get somebody on the exit. It's trickier to do these days after they open that corner up.
Interestingly, Rob Huff has just got in the Wolf Power Racing, obviously the fastest TCR car out there. And Rob having a great season in the World Touring Car Challenge, I think it's called these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
Battling for the lead of that title.
Now then, car arriving on pit road is the 91 Porsche with quite a bit of damage on the right-hand side. Again, that's just superficial, though, I would say. So that's the right-hand side, which had the secondary impact. Want to know what's going on the left-hand side, if Seb can get that side of the car, because that's where Alfred Renauer was most concerned. And is there a significant ding?
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of damage.
There's a big shark bite out of that part, and it's just in front of the rear wheel arch. There's also some scuffage over, well, that rear wheel and the tyre as well, so maybe that's what he's bothered about.
That's what he's bothered about.
And that's the side that he drives from, so he would have felt that thump, big style.
It didn't look so bad on the video, did it? But that was quite a big hit to make that damage.
Shaking their heads, they're not happy at all looking down into the engine itself. So there's a neat little hatch right over the engine that can be plucked out and removed by the crew. And I think they've realised the level of work that might be required tonight because of that. Let's hope to goodness that the car can actually take active part in the race tomorrow and Sunday. Diana Binks, because Seb's camera is there, Di will be very close indeed.
I'm not as close as you think. I'm not that far away. I'm just letting them bring the car back. I can see them taking the car into the garage to have a better look. I would have Pierre Caffer from Phoenix Racing, the number 18 car here, just to have a very quick chat with him. But he's gone back into the back of to have a chat with his team. I can see. Pierre? The number 18 car, Dony, I'm just moving out of the garage so that you can hear me. The number 18 car, Pierre, you've put the number 18 car, you've done the work you need to do out there tonight, you've got enough information, you're looking quite comfortable with the car in the garage.
Yeah, it's first of all, it's really nice to be back here in Creventic series, and 24 hours is a very long race. And as you said, we had enough time to drive, and tomorrow is a long race. And so we just want to take care a bit of the car, and we are looking forward for tomorrow.
Pierre, I'm going to leave you there because we've just got to go and follow what's going on in the pit lane, but we'll talk to you during the race. Thank you.
Well, now, interestingly, Sebastian's done terrifically well to stick with Alfred Renauer. He's gone up towards Schenkier Motorsport to have a word with those associated with Samuel Vitrek's BMW M4 GT4. So this is Porsche driver chatting to BMW mechanic or engineer. Like to be a full-on fly on the wall here to know what's going on, but it'll all be in German, so I'll not be able to understand it. Let's go to Diana Binks again.
Alfred, just seen you in the garage there having a chat with him. Clearly not a good situation for you tonight. You guys are putting in an awful amount of hard work in qualifying. From your perspective, how did you see it?
It was really bad because I don't know what he did. I was overtaking him on the straight line. Then I turned to the left and he hit me on the left side.
Then I spun into the gravel and he doesn't brake and hit me on the right again. I don't understand how this can happen. If you hit one guy on first, then you need to brake and don't hit him on the other side as well.
And hey, have they given you any explanation to that?
Well, the driver is still in the car, so they don't know what he did, but it was really bad.
How much damage is there to your car and what work will have to be underway tonight?
I'm not sure. We need to check the rear axle and the gearbox as well, if there's something damaged, because it was a hard hit. Maybe it's just 1 hour or 6-7 hours, I don't know yet.
And how much warning did you get on the track that you knew he was close at you? How much warning did you have that he was sort of pretty close to you?
I had no warning. I have my radar, but if I go faster or overtake him, it doesn't show anything. So didn't see him coming and it was bad.
Well, thank you for talking to us. Really appreciate that and hope you get everything resolved for tomorrow.
Johnny, I'm not sure we saw the whole act.
No, we didn't.
Johnny, I'm not sure we saw the beginning of it.
No.
I think we saw the second and third part of it.
Agreed. And, you know, there's a significant amount of zooming in, thinking, you know, from our camera crew,
yeah,
there's an incident going on there. But by that point, the initial impact had been made. And, you know, I could tell almost the shock in Alfred's voice there, that it was so unexpected. He described it happening on a straight, effectively. I'm still trying to work out exactly what part of the circuit it was on. I need to, you know, properly evaluate it. It's tough in the dark. And again, as I say, because it was a wider shot, then suddenly condensed into a tight frame. But one of the biggest issues he had was that, according to Alfa Romeo, Samuel then didn't brake. He didn't stop. So there was a secondary impact. He said, why did he drive into me again? But that BMW was going at a fair lick, in fairness. So, you know, without seeing telemetry, we don't know.
You've got somebody hugely experienced like Alfred, won this race outright 3 times. We know what he can do. And you've got a guy who's very inexperienced with, you know, no success. And I think you've got to side with Alfred, haven't you, really? I mean, that is one of the problems with a race like this, where you've got, you know, total professionals and amateurs all mixed in together.
Indeed.
And actually, I bet it's the same at Le Mans, to be honest. It happens at Le Mans.
It's the nature of the beast, in a way, and there is an element of lottery about it. There's also an element of being aware of your surroundings, but that's why that was actually one of my questions to Diana, to ask how much warning did you have of it happening, or was it just a bang and then all of a sudden there's a car in the side of me? And it sounded very much like the latter. So
I didn't quite understand it, because obviously Alfred had a lot more speed than him, so he'd gone by him and the bloke either turned into him as he was going by or something. I don't know.
Trying to get the right line for his BMW.
But interesting what he said. It might only be an hour to fix, or it might be 6. I think it's going to be the latter, to be frank. But there we are. I've enjoyed a little bit of commentary. Makes a change from the pit lane, and now I'm going to hand back to the venerable voice of Joseph Bradley.
Andrew Marriott always seems to bring the incident and the action wherever he goes, and we've certainly had plenty of that for the pole-sitting car. And the next bit of news, hopefully, from Herbert Motorsport will be good, in that, yes, they'll have some work to do on the car, but at least it hopefully won't put the car out of the race for this weekend. Very tricky to know how much internal damage has been done, and until they start stripping stuff down, the team will not know that either. But you go from knowing you've got an incredibly strong car, Joe Bradley, to now it could be a box of bits at the back, and you know how much of that is retrievable going into tonight and into tomorrow morning.
Alfred will know from how hard he was hit what the potential is. And as innocuous as that damage can look, the way that the energy transfers through the car, and remember the Porsche 992 has the engine and transmission in the back, if the wheel is at the rear wheel is impacted, all that energy goes through into the gearbox and the diff. And I was just sitting behind you guys just looking at that and thinking, is this 2022 Herbert nightmare not going to end? Because, you know, I was waxing lyrical about how fabulous it was to see the Herbert car back where we expect it to be at the front of the field. It will still start on the pole position. Those guys will pull an all-nighter. We've seen that many times. I just hope that it is just superficial bodywork damage and that the main elements of the car, i.e. the drivetrain, the motor and the suspension components are okay.
Yeah.
And we're not going to speculate, we're going to wait and see just what the report is on the car. We're not going to hear that report, Johnny, until we get back to the track here in the morning. The team's going to, spend a lot of time stripping all that down and just into a massive inspection.
The other side of the incident, the treble 4 BMW is now arriving, and the front right suspension of that BMW looks to be well out of alignment. Tyre in touch with wheel arch, certainly through the front section there. So, let's think about it from the Schenkier Motorsport point of view. And it's probably only right that Diana, once Samuel Vitrax got out of the car, that she at least asks Samuel for a quick word to put his side of the story to us too, because we've only heard it from Alfred so far, but there's clearly plenty of work for those involved with the Ravenol BMW treble 4 to be doing overnight as well. We will say that Samuel Vitrax is not as experienced by any stretch as Alfred Renauer. First 24H Series event for the Slovenian, and he then heading towards the back of the garage to at least take the helmet and hands device off for Schenkier Motorsport.
Yeah, I mean, front right corner, contacts left side of Porsche, and I'm not sure if that
right
camber
side.
right front corner of the BMW, and I'm not sure whether that camber's looking right, Johnny. That wheel looks to be, I know these cars carry a lot of camber, but I'm not sure as much as that, and maybe it's hit hard, and if it's hit the Porsche hard enough to break a suspension component, for that camber then to be affected or the strut to be bent, then that's a pretty heavy hit. And you know what, I wouldn't be surprised, that's why Alfred Renauer was so angry. Potentially that could put a car out of this weekend. And all right, you know what, that looks like a bit of superficial bodywork damage, and now that I've seen it in that guise, that right hand front wheel doesn't look to be as cambered as I first saw. So, you know what, it might just be superficial damage on both the 91 Porsche and the 444 BMW. I've just heard Di there, Samuel doesn't want to be interviewed and give his side of the story, which I can never understand, because there's always two sides of a story.
Well, all we can do is give him a chance, offer him an interview, and he's chosen not to for the time being. There's always tomorrow. Because this story for Schenkier Motorsport will now be followed closely by us to realise how much work that they have got to do as well. This was certainly not part of the plan for the GT4 car.
No, I mean an accident is by definition, as something that isn't done deliberate. It's not an accident if it's done deliberately, and nobody does that deliberately. And I know we've seen it in motorsport. We've seen plenty of incidents that have been created deliberately, but certainly, the Czech team will. They'll spend the rest of this evening going through the front end of that BMW and maybe replace a front wing or just scuff that out. That does look more superficial. The more I'm seeing of it in that pit lane. I know Di is down there and she probably can't tell us much more than what Seb, our cameraman, is getting for us. So it's not just going to be a little bit of a wipe down overnight. It's going to be and that front wheel isn't moving as the is it on dollies or is it on the ground?
No,
the team are pushing the car off the flatbed, which is kind of sort of being lowered off the truck to virtually on the ground, and no, it's rolling, but that right front wheel is not turning, so it is suspension damage under there. So we'll maybe get a bit of a first thought from one of the team members potentially. But it's what night practice can bring, isn't it? It's what this sport brings. It's always got a lot of potential, and we haven't even got into the race yet, and here we are encountering adversity that the teams can obviously have to react to, and that's how that differentiates the good teams and the bad teams.
Let's go down to Schenkier Motorsport regardless, because Diane has managed to find the team manager, so let's see what he knows.
Yeah, Robert Schenkier is the team manager here, and you guys have been talking about the car as it's been offloaded back in to the garage. First of all, Robert, we obviously saw Alfred Renauer come down to have a chat with you earlier about the incident on track. What do you know from your driver's side?
Yeah, we had an onboard camera in our car, so we know that it was a mistake or a failure of our driver. Unfortunately, he missed the brake point and hit the Porsche. So bad luck for both and a long night for both team of mechanics. Yeah, we are not happy, but it's motorsport and such things can happen. So yeah, bad luck.
Looking at the BMW as it's come off the back of the flat pack truck there, what can you see? It looks like suspension damage to the front left, right.
Yeah, definitely the front right side is completely lost. So I think the damper and the whole suspension, the right side, and the spoiler and some body parts. So yeah, it's bigger damage in the front right side.
It's really unfortunate, isn't it? And of course, during the night practice session like this, you're always trying to be as careful as possible.
Yeah, it was not necessary. As I told already, it's a bad luck, can happen. Nobody is happy about it. So we are sorry for the Porsche team. And hopefully they can repair the car, and so do we. And you can see both of us on the start grid tomorrow.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
The other element, of course, is how many drivers have Schenkier Motorsport got through in terms of night practice as well. I mean, Mariotti was making the point earlier on, you can sort of bend those rules a little bit, but I would say it's going to be easier for Herbert to do that, because they say to the clerk of the course, Jeroen Steenhuis, look at all the races we've won through the years. Schenkier Motorsport don't quite have that back catalogue of success, and certainly not amongst their drivers either.
They're a bit of an unknown quantity, aren't they? And
without wishing to be rude, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Samuel Vitrat, who we've mentioned an awful lot because he was driving at the time. You've got Marian Biz, who's an AM driver. Those two are Slovenian, as is Richard Gonda, who's the semi-pro. Then you've got Petra Svantner of the Czech Republic, like the team, and Ladislav Šmukra, I think you say it as. I will check that, though. Šmukra for Schenkier Motorsport. Now, Schenkier are no strangers to a Creventic race, and they're a big entity within BMW performance cars and have a nice place at Popovsky in the Czech Republic. So, Robert, nicely experienced. He's brought a load of crew that will know their Beamers back to front, but the drivers, it's more questionable about whether they are legitimately allowed to start tomorrow's race, because have they had the required amount of time behind the wheel in these conditions? We'll wait and see. Yeah, with less than 10 minutes now to run in this session, we're certainly not going to see any more running from that car tonight, and it's going to be in tomorrow's morning warm-up when we perhaps get an idea of whether that car is repairable. I mean, just looking at it, it all depends on, of course, how much spares the team carry as well, and what extent of spares. And I'm pretty sure they'll be fine. They'll be, front suspension. The team manager summed it up. It's motorsport. This sort of thing happens, and I'm sure the driver will be beating himself up about it, because he's added to the workload. He's caused issues and complications with driver qualification and the like, and nobody does that deliberately. Everybody just, everybody. But it is. It was a mistake. If it was easy, Johnny, everybody'd be doing it. Well, the reason why motorsport is attractive is because it's a challenge, and these cars might appear like they're on rails, and they just seem to make the corner every time. Sometimes that's just not going to happen. And, my fear was something maybe had failed on that BMW, but Robert Schenkier saying, no, it was our driver making an error. And when you don't know this track a great deal, it might be a new racing car as well for Samuel. It's very easy to kid yourself that you're heading into a faster corner than you actually are at times, particularly if you've got the distraction of, lights that you didn't know would be dazzling you at that point of the circuit during the night laps. That's part of the reason why night practice happens. And these incidents are possibly more likely to happen because it's a practice session than when you finally get to the race. Daniel Alleman trying to put a brave face on the situation down at Herbert Motorsport as the various panels are now removed from the rear of Porsche number 91. And yeah, that car is going to continue to be in a state of undress. It depends how far up the car they're going to have to remove bits from it. The nose looks very clean indeed.
Yeah.
That's the one end that still is pristine. But big concerns about that left rear side and how much damage has been done to the drivetrain where the drive shaft meets the gearbox, etc.
Fastest in tonight's session, car number 1, carrying the number 1 because it's the reigning 24H Series champion. ST Racing's BMW, Nick Wittmer at the wheel. And this is all about lap time, over 1 lap. Qualifying was about 3 laps aggregate with 3 drivers. Tonight is purely down to the fastest lap set by the car. They've done 19 laps, and the fastest lap time came 2 laps ago, 1:49.5. The only team to dip into the 49s. And that, Johnny, I've got to say, bodes very well. What did you say, 11 and a half hours of darkness?
Yeah, near enough.
Yeah, 11 and a half hours of darkness. Bodes very well. They've got the pace at this time of night. Georg Weiss in the WTM, the Boxspiegel team, Monschau Ferrari. They are second. Both cars in the pits, by the way. Probably their nighttime practice session over. They're the fastest time for them, 1:50.312, a full 7/10 of a second. We haven't seen, I'm pretty sure we have not seen anybody do a simulated qualifying run. That is a race pace on tyres. Now that might have been on a fresh set of tyres for the 49.5. Impossible to tell from where we are sitting, but it does bode very well. It does indeed bode very well. I just hope that the 91 Porsche can be repaired, and that we've actually got another team in with a chance, because it's nice to have 5, 6, 7 cars in with a potential chance of victory. That's what people are here to see. That's what people tune in for. That's what people want to see. They want to see a big battle, not just at the front of the field as well, Johnny, but certainly throughout our classes, and certainly we'll be looking at TCR as well.
Well, we want as much strength in depth as possible, and you know, there is a very strong team which is on a bit of a tightrope tonight as to whether it can take part in the race tomorrow or not. But you know, there's a very strong risk of us speaking far too soon. So let's edge away from that. To give you an idea of fastest times from earlier on, by the way, I'm hitting combined result to hope that, yes, I'm going to get all the times here. I still think that 1:47 done by Nicholas Varone is just about the best time. It was the only 1:47 of the whole.
A massive Nick Varone fan, haven't you?
I was already there, mate. I was already there, having covered a few of his other races this year as well. But yeah, I mean, no one else in the 1:47s during qualifying. He managed that, remember, in Q2. Next thing I need to look at is 1:48, and we did get a couple of those. 1:48.8 from Daniel Kylvitz, who was the 3rd driver into the same Ferrari that the Argentinian was driving. And that's interesting, because you look at the bottom of the timing sheet and it tells me the fastest time was the Kylvitz effort, a 1:48, but we know for a fact that there was a 1:47.9, so that's an error that I probably need to have a word with for the guys down at timeservice.nl, because 1:47.9 just hasn't been recognised for some reason.
That's a bit odd.
Yet it was nearly a second faster than the Kylvitz effort. Nevertheless, we had 1:40. We had a 1:47 and we had 1:48. Otherwise, 1:49, very respectable. If you're in the low 1:49s, you're really not hanging around. We've had a mid 1:49 in tonight's session, set by Nick Wittmer. Very close to him deciding that's it for the night. You know, the ST Racing BMW, fantastic, probably race pace, as you've said. If you're in the 1:49s, that'll be on relatively light fuel, I would guess. We're happy with that. Before anything untoward happens, park it. And Herbert Motorsport will have been wishing they'd done the same thing, but isn't hindsight a wonderful thing?
Spot on, Johnny. I mean, he did 2 more laps after that fast lap. So, yeah, he was getting down on his fuel probably. Coming towards the end of his run, the team have been a part of this session for the whole of the 90 minutes. So they've cycled through all of their drivers. And remember, the number 1, Samantha Tan, Nick Wittmer, Bryson Morris, and there's an additional driver in that number 1 now, isn't it?
Yes. Who is Stephen Agakani, isn't it? Agakani. Stephen Agakani.
Yeah, get an updated sheet for them.
So, yeah, we need to scribble that in at some stage. But that's now a 4-driver lineup in ST Racing's BMW.
I think that's sensible, 4 drivers over a 24-hour race. 3 drivers would have been pushing it. I know that early entry list that I've got in front of me only had 3 drivers. That was always going to change. They were always going to recruit a 4th driver. It makes it very, very hard indeed to do a 24-hour race with 3 drivers. I mean, I know the Le Mans teams do it with 3.
But Stephen Agakani describes on his Instagram page, youngest Super Trofeo world champion in the AM class, first place in GT Cup California, 8 hours, and he's FIA certified in the IMSA Pro US Racetronics driver World Challenge event as well. Still only 19, assuming his Instagram description is up to speed. Of course, when you include your age within that, you've always got to be on top of the ball, when your next birthday rolls around. But Stephen Agakani still very early on in his racing career and being brought in very last minute to take part in car number 1.
But he's the boyfriend of Samantha Tan, isn't he?
So I'm told.
So I'm not, just how last minute, I'm not sure.
Well, I think he was always going to be here, but whether, you know, and
well, I'm not, I mean,
a few people in motorsport have always told me, bring your helmet to a race meeting, because you just never know.
All of my race driver mates even take their race helmet and kit to the supermarket, just in case they meet somebody there. I don't know what they're expecting.
Well, yeah, somebody at the supermarket suddenly finds they can no longer drive a race street car, perhaps, and needs some help in getting it home in the evening.
Andrew here, just to add.
Yes, Andrew.
Agakani is actually a Persian, Iranian name, and there's a very famous conductor of the same surname. I don't know that this is his son, but that's his background.
So, very famous classical conductor for symphony orchestras, quite possibly, or orchestras anyway. And yes, there may well be a family connection there. That's something else to try and get to the bottom of. We've had a new quick time. It's not quite the fastest of the night, but it will put the Jutta Racing Audi R8 second quickest for Jonas Gelginis. Now, fans of Porsche Carrera Cup Great Britain, for only, 7, 8, 9 years ago, Jonas was a big star in that at Pro-Am level and then eventually worked his way into the Pro category. So I'm not surprised to see an Audi R8 going pretty swiftly in his hands. 150.250 for the Lithuanian driver.
Great lap time, 150.2. Almost down to that. What's the gap? Still, 0.3 of a second off? Yeah. But we'll say 0.3, just to be... again, it's coming to the end of the session. We're low on fuel. The car's breathing beautifully. The tyres are working well in the cooler temperatures. And we're seeing these cars maybe having a bit of an optimised run. Add in the Jutta Racing Audi, shall we, into the mix?
Maybe.
With good run in these 11 and a half hours of darkness is what we're going to have. So over the course of the 24 hours... if they can, consistently put in these quick lap times, then they're going to be in the reckoning.
Their focus will be, certainly winning the Pro-Am category, entered into that. So you've got Gelginis, who's the standout for me, as the semi-pro. He had been a race winner in Carrera Cup GB on a few occasions, particularly in 2013. He took 3 wins that year. But Jonas joined by not his younger brother, but 3 other drivers from Lithuania who are mainly AMs. There's an AM Plus in there as well. And Lars Viljoen. Okay, who has the
He's the yachting. He's the yacht captain.
Who has, my brain's completely faded now by this time of night,
the
has the Union flag. No, he has a Union flag next to his name. I thought you were going to talk about the
accolade of me running.
I was just desperate not to say Union Jack, because that's the one on the ship, isn't it? Anyway, 28 laps completed. Not really need to pay attention to how many laps are being done, although it's interesting from a running perspective as to how many drivers they've managed to cycle through these various cars. Wolf Power Racing will finish as the quickest TCE machine. And bear in mind, they took pole position earlier on as well. So it's Rob Huff, Marlon Menden, who did so well in qualifying earlier on today. Ivars Valers, who did not take part in qualifying, but will have done some night laps tonight. And Jasmine Preissig. The first of the two BBR and Monlau Run Cupras come next. The 158 Leon Competition, which will be second fastest, ahead of the sister machine, the TCR, with the DSG box, car 159 third quickest. Then it's the 188 AC Motorsport Audi RS3 for Stefan Perrin, Mathieu Detry, Vincent Rademacher and Charles Dawson. And then the Holmgaard Motorsport crew. Not quite an all-Danish squad there. You've got Andy Stocco, the Brit, and Norwegian Roy Edlund. Holmgaard Motorsport finished fifth in also a Leon Competition. The Viper Niza Racing crew, all Malaysian, number 165 with their Cupra TCR, sixth quickest. Spanish outfit Rail Equipe by Totcar Sport have their regular Cupra TCR. They managed the seventh fastest time in night practice, ahead of the Simpson Motorsport Audi RS3 LMS for the three members of the Neil family, Matt, Henry and Will. And Sasha is still listed there, despite not being in the car now. Ricky Coomber definitely is, as is James Kay. Ninth quickest and top in the TC class, the 332 Hofor Racing by Bonk Motorsport BMW M2 for Martin Kroll, but also Michael Bonk, Max Partel. Herman Bock is a new name in that car, and Michael Meyer. They did 18 laps in the session. 90 minutes of GT night practice put the ST Racing BMW M4 for Nick Whitmer, who did the time, a 149.594, managed that on lap 17 of a total of 19 laps that car did. Sam Tan did some night driving, as did Bryson Morris and Stephen Agakani. There is official confirmation that Agakani is in the car this weekend. Jutta Racing leaving it late to pluck out a 150.250 to put their car second fastest. It was a Jonas Gelginis time. And third quickest in night practice, the WTM Racing Ferrari 488 for Weiss, father and son, Nicholas Veroni, Daniel Kalvitz and Indy Doncha. Uber Racing's Porsche was fourth fastest, ahead of the Dynamic Motorsport Porsche as well. They are both GT3 cars. Hofer Racing's AMG, Mercedes AMG, for the returning previous champions, sixth quickest. Phoenix Racing's Audi, seventh fastest, and in eighth position, the damaged Herbert Motorsport Porsche number 91. And will that be able to be repaired overnight is the big question mark hanging over that car right now. Poulsen Motorsport of Denmark finished ninth quickest. Last in that car was Christian Poulsen himself after 16 laps. Three Danes and a Swiss at the driving lineup there. An all-American lineup, of course, for CP Racing in 10th position in their Mercedes AMG. Lippert Motorsport topped GTX in night practice with the Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo for the Germans. Then Vortex V8, the first of their two cars, second quickest in that category. In the 992s, fastest was the 360 Racing Team. Now, that was the same car. No, it was a sister car, in fact, to the one that ended up in the gravel earlier on today during qualifying, which caused a red flag. But 926, quickest of the 992 Cup Porsches. 701, third fastest in GTX, the second of the Vortexes. Red Ant Racing, second in their 992 category, car 903, quicker than 904, 15th and 16th overall. Rabdan Motorsport, fourth fastest in 992 of the United Arab Emirates. You've got the RD Science Siliao Racing GTX Super Trofeo, fourth in that category in number 720. Then topping their 991 for the older Porsche Cup cars, local team E2P Racing from fellow Spaniards in the 992, Bapora Motorsport. Red Camel Jordans.nl come next in car 909. Vili Motorsport by Ebby Motors, so that's a Romanian and Italian combination. 22nd overall for them. HRT Performance next in 23rd, also with a 992 Porsche. Azar Seb Lejeune Racing by Duvo Racing, 24th. HRT Performance, the second of their cars, 25th. The 360 Racing Team car did get out to do 25 laps after Georgios Frangoulis' error, mistake, whatever happened earlier on in the day. At least they got that car running again for night practice. Atlas BX Motorsports Mercedes GT4 topped that subcategory, and all the drama going the way, together with the 91 Porsche, of the treble 4 Schenkier motorsport machine, and clearly plenty of damage to be repaired on that car as well, all focused on the front right corner. So lots happening in 90 minutes of free practice. Let's refresh your memory as to the various bits and bobs that we had in the evening of the Barcelona 24 hours. And rather ominously, the garage door lowered in front of the Herbert Motorsport Porsche as a long night is about to begin. So coming next, coming tomorrow more accurately, will be the 24 hours of Barcelona itself, the 23rd edition of the Trofeo Fermi Vélez. Starting at 1 o'clock, but we've got full build-up, Central European summertime, from 12:30 with all the cars on the grid, and a chance for Diana Binks, Andrew Marriott to have a chat to starting drivers, to team members as well, to get you truly in the mood for the 23rd time that this event has happened. And then we will have fully live coverage all the way through, with commentary, that is, until midnight tomorrow night. And then the onboards will take you through into Sunday morning before we rejoin the coverage from 8 o'clock local time all the way to the finish. You can enjoy the Barcelona 24 hours, the Hankook 24-hour Barcelona, with us here on the Radio Show Limited network of channels. Join Diana, Andrew, Joe and me, Johnny Palmer, tomorrow from 12:30. Bye-bye for now.